What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on First Take, they're going to be talking about how James Harden has some complaints about the MVP. So see what they have to say about that.
In an interview with 97.9 The Box, here's what Harden had to say. Let's take a listen.
Once the media, they create a narrative about somebody from the beginning of the year, I think they just take that narrative and then run with it the entire year. Like, I don't even want to get into the details, but all I can do is control what I can do. And I went out there and did what I was supposed to do at a high level. You know what I'm saying? A season probably, it's only a few other seasons that anybody's ever done that before.
All right, guys, do you agree with James Harden that the media narrative affected the MVP race?
Is his point that the storytellers have influence over which characters are focused on in the story? If that's the point, the answer is yes, he's right, and he is one of those characters. And the story on James Harden has not changed much, although it
Actually, to be honest, James Harden should be more worried about winning a championship and getting to the finals than worried about this whole MVP thing. Like, I mean, seriously, he's already won the MVP. He's had trouble getting to the finals for multiple years. I think at this point, he just needs to be more focused on getting to the finals and winning a championship instead of complaining and crying about who won the MVP and why he should have got MVP this year again or whatever the situation is. Worry about getting to the finals and not choking. That's what it should be worried about. So let's continue.
As a little bit, people like me acknowledge that his defense has improved. He's disruptive, with his in passing lanes and stuff like that. And you can see more of an effort and a better effect on defense. He's still not a good defensive player, but he's not as bad as he was. He's gotten better. His offense, everyone said, is historically great. Of course, we live in an era where right now in the NBA, if you're a primary ball handler, you will put up better numbers than ever before. Then since that crazy season when Wilt averaged 50 points and Elgin Baylor averaged 37 and Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double, like we're in that kind of era now. So Westbrook had average a triple-double for 3 consecutive seasons because he's great, and the primary ball handler gets to do a lot more now, and that's James Harden, who's also great. James Harden wasn't quite as good as the Greek Freak this year, but that's not why he didn't win the MVP award, because people were framing an MVP conversation. In fact, we're much more sophisticated about identifying who's the best than ever before. And I don't know what Harden's complaining about, because it's always him or another dude. Like if you said who's the MVP of the regular season, over the last 3 years, he'd win that award. It's always Harden or this guy, Harden or Steph, Harden or the Freak, Harden or... So he's getting exactly the credit he deserves.
Exactly. He does get the type of credit he deserves. It always is James Harden and somebody else in the mix if James Harden doesn't win the MVP. That's what I'm saying. Right now, it's old because everybody knows how good James Harden is. Everybody knows he's a baller during the regular season. But once he gets to the playoffs, he starts to choke. So as far as I'm concerned at this point, you need to just worry about getting to the finals and winning a championship. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about the MVP or who should have got it or why you should have got it and you didn't get it. At this point in your career, all you need to be worried about is getting to the finals and winning a championship. That's it. So let's continue.
Exactly. No more, no less.
Harden went through a stretch where he had 5 straight months of 50-point, at least with one 50-point game. He scored over 40. I don't even remember how many times he did it. The brother averaged 36 and 6 for crying out loud on 44% shooting and 36 from 3-point range. James Harden was my league MVP. I understood why the Greek Freak was going to get it. And I think at times it appears, based on what James Harden says, that you have a point, because people get caught up in this guy is that dude and they stick to it and it's hard to move them off their position. But I don't think he should speak about it with the cynicism that he gave it, because James Harden was a league MVP before for the same reason. We looked at him and how he performed. One could make the argument he should have won the MVP the year before he actually did. Then he came back and did win the MVP. Then he finished in second last year. The Greek Freak won more games. They were a number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. He was a monster on both sides of the ball, both ends of the floor, whereas James Harden obviously did it offensively. My case for James Harden being the MVP, Chris Paul missed 24 games, Clint Capella missed a share of games, Eric Gordon missed a share of games, Trevor Ariza was let go, and they let him go and land in Phoenix for 1 year, $15 million deal. I never thought they should have lost Trevor Ariza. And James Harden, after starting off 11 and 14, said, give me the ball and move out the way. I've had enough of this, and took the hell over. To me, that's what MVPs are made of. In doing so in the Western Conference, he deserves a lot of credit. But what he has to be mindful of is that you have to understand, and here's where his argument makes a point, by the way, real quick. Luka Doncic, we were talking about him Rookie of the Year. I remember coming on there and saying, I didn't want to see nobody else. And then the last 2 months, Trae Young came on like a monster and made it close. Yeah. If Luka Doncic hadn't been ordained as the Rookie of the Year in waiting, I'm saying, who knows what some would have done in the media.
So they would have gotten it wrong?
I'm saying.
Like, they got it right.
It's possible that they would have, because the media got caught up in what Trae Young was doing over the last 2 months.
I see what you're saying.
They're getting caught up.
You're saying the media could do it the other way, too.
Exactly.
Even if they start with one guy, they could...
That's what I'm saying. But what James Harden has to do is appreciate that as being a part of it.
You know who it applies to, though? It doesn't apply... What Harden's point, there's some validity to what he's saying.
Yeah.
It applies to Steph Curry more than Harden. James Harden only had a better season than Steph Curry because he was asked to do more. And Steph has shown whenever he's asked to do more, he can do it too. Harden wasn't...
And it's been like that for a couple years. So let's continue.
Better than Steph Curry last year. He just was better more often because his team asked him to do more with the ball.
And plus he didn't miss games, and Steph Curry had to miss games.
But then in the playoffs, Steph was better than James Harden.
Sure.
Doesn't importance to team and the carrying of load also factor into how you decide an MVP?
Absolutely. James Harden's
So I don't think that negates Harden's case.
My point is, James Harden was asked to do more, and he did it. And just because Steph has shown that his rates are the same or better than Harden's, and when he's asked him to do more, he can also do it, doesn't mean he did it. That's true. Usage rate, not missing games, all that stuff counts for Harden. That's why he came in second and Steph came in fifth. The stuff that he's talking about, actually, you could apply that more to a player like Steph than Harden.
But you do have an obligation to take into account what somebody is asked to do, because sometimes people are asked to take a lesser role. Sometimes they're asked to step forward. Sometimes they're asked to shoot more. Sometimes they're asked to shoot less. You have to take into account what your job description is. In my opinion, I've always done that when measuring an MVP. And I look at Budenholzer and what he's asked of the Greek Freak, and I appreciate that. But what Mike D'Antoni asked of James Harden, and for James Harden to come out there and do what he did last year,
he's actually a team player.
I think he deserved league MVP.
One thing Harden should get credit for, because there's this idea, people conflate these two different issues. Oh, it's the ball stops and everyone sits around and watch Harden, and that's the problem with the Houston offense. In fact, Harden's a team player, because not only did he work on his defense and all that stuff, when his team needed him to score 50, he did that. When guys came back and he needed to take a little step back, he did that. Just because a dude scores 50 points doesn't mean he's not a team player. He's a team player. I'm giving him credit for everything he deserves. He was the second best player in the regular season last year. Not about narrative, it's about what happened.
I think it goes close both ways. Either Giannis or Harden would have been absolutely deserving MVP candidates. And Stephen A., like you, last season, I had a vote for the postseason awards as well, and I voted Harden.
Postseason?
Yep. I voted Harden